Hello and welcome to our review of Teddy Roosevelt and his impact on the Progressive Era. Since we're talking about Teddy Roosevelt, we're talking about the government, the top-down approach to Progressive Era, rather than the grassroots stuff, the bottom-up, the muckraking, the populism, even the Grange, started by regular people. With Teddy Roosevelt, you're talking about the government initiatives, so laws and policy that the government makes. So, Progressive Era, we're talking about a response to industrialization run rampant, capitalism taking advantage of the little guy, and the problems that has caused since the Civil War, really, up until the 1880s, 1890s, when people start to get really upset about it. So, 30, 40 years of discontent, and the government's finally starting to listen as the problems really get highlighted for the first time. So, what I'm going to talk about is, the theme I come up with is paternalism. He calls it the square deal. What he wants to do is, every citizen is worth the same thing. He's going to treat everybody fairly. And to go back to the paternalism theme, it's like treating all your kids fairly. Beforehand, it's kind of like the parents had their kids and they just kind of let them go back. And you've got a few older brothers or something who come in and just start bullying around all the little children. What he's going to come back and say is, no, you each get the same share. Stop bullying each other. You all get the same opportunity for everything. So not necessarily the same outcome, but same opportunity. We're going to start treating the little citizens, the little brothers, same as the big guys, the capitalists and the industrialists. And the first approach that he does is what he's most famous for. It comes up on all the Regents exams. It'll probably be on it for the rest of the Regents exams history. Trust busting. He's really famous for going in and trying to smash up these big corporations. So you've got a group of the older brothers up there bullying around the other brothers, making them do their chores, not giving them anything. So he kind of breaks them up and says, no, you can't do that anymore. You've got to be more fair. And he is pretty famous for this because he's the first president to really actively go after really anything. The presidency had kind of been a passive role for a long time. And Teddy Roosevelt, being kind of the big egomaniac that he was, not necessarily a bad thing, but he loved the attention and loved being center stage, so if he's going to be president, he's going to do it big, he's going to be powerful. He goes in and starts telling these corporations like Standard Oil, they just can't dominate the way they have. If they're the only company, the only monopoly that's in the market, then they can charge high prices, people have to pay it because that's all they want. They can put out kind of a crappy product because who's competing with them? If you've got to buy it, you got to buy it. You can't, why? There's no incentive to make it better if people are going to buy it anyway. So he really steps in and says, we want competition. We're going to break up these big companies, make them smaller companies, and then with the competition, the product will get better. So you've got one company starts here, the next one's there. So this company responds and says, okay, I'm going to be there. And at the same time, you've got prices coming down on the other side because they can't charge so much if people can go to the next company and buy it for a little bit cheaper. Prices come down, and it's a little bit better for everybody. Except, I guess, the capitalist who doesn't have quite the profit margin they used to. But for all the other people, it's a lot better. But Teddy Roosevelt was really the first president to start doing that, followed by Taft and Wilson later. The next thing he was pretty famous for is his arbitration, and this is his approach to settling labor disputes, the most famous one being the coal strike. If you're a sports fan, this comes up a lot, and not the games itself, but the behind-the-scenes stuff, the contract stuff. And I know it's definitely in the NHL because I'm a hockey guy, so if you've got a player like... This actually happened a few years ago with the Sabres. They had Ellis Kodalik went to arbitration. He thought he was worth more money than the Sabres did. The Sabres gave him what he felt was a low ball offer. He said, I'm worth a lot more money than that. So he called up the league and said, hey, what do you guys think? Come listen to our debate. And the league sat down in the middle as kind of a mediator, a solution finder. And both sides argued their case. The Sabres said, we think he's only worth this much because of this. Look at this evidence. Kodalik said, well, look at this stuff here. And they talked about it, and the NHL decided, okay, we're going to come to some middle ground right here, some agreement we can all decide is fair enough. And that's what happened. The Sabres took his salary. To go back to the coal strike, the workers felt they were really being taken advantage of, so they went on strike. And what presidents previously did was generally they just sent in the National Guard and said, get back to work, we need the coal. You can't disrupt the country like this. And Roosevelt said, I don't want to take advantage of them like that. I don't want to smash the heads, so he does it peacefully by being the mediator. And again, this goes back to the paternalism. You've got a squabble between two brothers. Parent comes in and says, all right, what happened? How can we fix this? He wants to solve these problems before they get to huge, explosive problems. And what he was really not fearful at the time, but what he wanted to prevent was socialism was starting to take hold. The International Workers of the World is pretty famous throughout the world. And right around the corner is the Russian Revolution, so this stuff is on everybody's mind. And Roosevelt's thinking was, if I can fix these problems before they really blow up, we won't have a socialist threat because people will be kind of appeased, or they'll be taken care of for a little bit so that they stop worrying for a bit and stop being so radical, so dramatic. They settle on the small solutions that he gives them first. Finally, the third thing that he's pretty famous for in this time, third part of his square deal, is conservatism. And what he was arguing for is to slow down all the mass consumption in this country. He felt that the country was just steamrolling too fast towards a bleak future because they were going to strip the country bare of everything it had. It's like the idea when your parents give you allowance and they say, put it in the bank. He's looking at the country, looking what they had, and the country's money, the allowance that they've got, is their natural resources, their coal, their oil, their timber, the national parks. But before this were not national parks. Roosevelt wanted a way for the country to save that because he thought we were stripping it too quickly, spending our money too quickly. So he said, well, we're going to create these zones called national parks where you can't dig it up, you can't cut the trees down, you can't strip mine, just slow down on consuming everything. Because there's actually a quote that I'll dig up quickly. Delivered a speech in 1908, and the last line he says, any farmer can live pretty well for a year if he is content not to live at all the year after. So what he's saying is, if you're only living for today, you're going to go all out and spend everything. That's what he thought the country was doing. They were going nuts and cutting down all the trees. And he said, well, we're not just living for today, we've got a future. So he wanted us to save up a little bit and slow down. So he promoted all these national parks. So you've got trust busting, arbitration and labor disputes, and then conservatism. Those are the three big things that Teddy Roosevelt is known for. And he's a big part, the first president of the progressive movement, and a big reason why a lot of this stuff is even still today with oil crisis and Microsoft and monopolies, all that stuff. He set the precedent for all that, really driving the presidency into a powerful role. So, hope you learned something, hope you do well on your exam. Thanks.